I don't know what I'm doing right now. It's currently like really late at night, and I decided to record this video now. But just a theory I had for a while. Again, it's just a theory using Demise and Decaying Winter, nothing else. I don't know if like any other developer has posted about this on Discord or anything. I don't have Discord. Check my bio. All I have is YouTube and Roblox, and nothing else. So yeah. If my voice sounds tired or there's some like audio change in my voice, that's because I'm probably recording this 2 different times. Right now I'm recording this at like literally like 2 in the morning. I don't know when the next Sesame scene, so yeah. Enjoy, I guess, or something. So there's this game that's a spin-off game of Decaying Winter. This game is called no other than Demise of Eden. It's a game that I'm very fond of, and I love this game a lot. But there's one theory that's been brewing in my mind for a while now, and that's the theory on what is Damien's old team. I say this because in Damien's story, he had an old team before joining the Demise of Eden cast. And this whole entire old team died. Now, there is a chance that they're also canonly dead in the actual Decaying Winter world, but I doubt that heavily, and that's something I'll get on into a later video. This one's only about Damien's old team in the right now events before the Demise of Eden. The Demise of Eden is a uncanon event, meaning this infection never happened, but the interactions still do. Kind of, in a sense, if that makes sense. Now, for Damien's old team, this is a crucial factor that tells us Damien had someone in his life that was important to him that he lost near an event to Demise of Eden. In Decaying Winter, they're alive, but in Demise of Eden, they're dead. At first, when I read this character story, I thought they were talking about Kaz. I thought Kaz was the character. Oh, that must have been the character, must have been Damien's friend, old team member died, blah blah blah. No, it's not Kaz. Because how can it be Kaz if Kaz is clearly alive in the Demise of Eden cast? It is impossible for it to be Kaz. Then who could it have been? Well, here's where my theory starts. In Decaying Winter, there's this mode called Holdout Mode. We literally see the wooden barriers of Holdout Mode and the Demise of Eden. Meaning this mode could be like canonly interacted with the Demise of Eden. Meaning the Holdout Mode team existed. Meaning Damien's old team is the Holdout Mode Last Stranded mode team. Again, this is a theory, don't take this too seriously. Meaning, his old members of his team could have been Agent Jericho, also known as Jackson, Archangel Delta, Lijo, Deadeye, and there's also Decaying, aka the pilot, but I'm not going to worry much about her because she doesn't even talk really to her own teammates, so I hope you guys don't mind. I'm going to pretend she just isn't here for a second. Now, here's my running theory of the characters. When it comes to Lijo, he's a rent sniper, and I'm pretty sure this is the first time everyone's meeting Lijo. Damien has never left Eden, he's always been on Eden. Meaning, he has never met Lijo, meaning there's no way him and Lijo could be friends if Lijo comes straight from New Earth. Archangel Delta is a servo. I'm not even sure Damien is aware what a servo is. It is obvious he never acknowledges it in the Demisian dialogue. But here's one thing I really want to mention. The character Jericho. Jericho himself is a very interesting and in-depth character that I do want to go into more in-depth in more later. I want to make a whole entire video going in-depth about Jericho because he's such an interesting character. I might think the person who was part of Damien's old team was Jericho. Now, I know this is a long stretch. Knowing from Jericho, he's a man who lost everything. He didn't have anything left. Or did he? I forgot to mention this in the recording. Jericho was on EN27 before the collapsion. He was on like the 1 or 2nd wave of agents who came, which was before the collapsion. Thanks to the facts we have about Julia. So that's how Jericho could have also met Damien, through that. I just completely forgot to mention that and breezed over it for some reason. So that's also that. Now, this part is a bit of a stretch here. This could be a big plot hole. But, in the sake of theorizing, in the sake of like the theory I guess, I will pretend the plot holes are part of the lore because that's what you do when you're analyzing a story. Valerie and Joseph are enemies. Valerie and Joseph absolutely hate each other and are trying to stab each other and get each other down every second they get. You know what? I have this another theory, this running theory, that I will go on that in our video, that Valerie is the reason Julia is dead. Yes, this theory is going off another one of my other theories, which I will make a whole entire video about soon, so it does kind of interact and intersect with each other, and it is a bit wobbly, but just please hear me out. If Valerie really was the one who killed Julia, aka Jericho's friend, why doesn't Joseph put a stab to that? It is obvious that Valerie is seen on the equal playback that I think is Julia being killed. Sure, Rosie is clearly there too, meaning Joseph knows Valerie killed Julia. He could have known from the equal playback, and he also could have known through Cher Rose, his own right-hand gal. Meaning, Joseph could have said something about this, saying, hey, you ruined Jericho's life by doing so-and-so. But what's the point in saying that if Jericho's dead? What I'm getting at Jack here is that Jericho is canonically dead in the Demise of Eden universe. Delta and Archangel, Archangel's the same person, but my bad. Delta and Lijo. Right. The reason why I said Delta and Archangel is because Archangels are a bit different from 88. And then we get Delta. It doesn't make a lot of sense here, but just go on with it. Lijo, Delta, Kaya, they're probably dead too, let's be honest here. They make their own team, due to the fact we don't see them at all, or they might still be alive, who knows. But when it comes to Jericho, and also Valerie, again, Joseph and Valerie probably worked when Jericho worked. We see Jericho literally mentioned under the Canary Black. He's the one who got the Canary Black, meaning he has actively worked with Valerie and Joseph. Why don't Valerie or Joseph mention Jericho? This is something I really am going to talk a lot more about in my own personal theory about Jericho. But why? Valerie could have mentioned about Jericho stab at Joseph, or Joseph could have mentioned something about Jericho to stab at Valerie. But why? Why do they never mention it? Why is Jericho never mentioned period Demise of Eden? Why? I think it's because Jericho actively is dead in Demise of Eden. Because why would you jab at that person? Yes, Valerie does jab to Jessica, the one Joseph personally hates. But then why would Valerie give Joseph more feel? If Valerie mentioned Jericho, it would give Joseph feel, which would make sense why she never mentioned him. But Joseph could so easily mention Jericho. But it is obvious Joseph doesn't mention dead people, meaning the one who might be dead is Jericho. And if Jericho is dead, and Jericho was part of the holdout mode, last stranded mode in Decaying Winter, it means Jericho is most likely to be the person who was close and was one of Damien's friends. Another piece of evidence I have to talk about this whole thing. In Kaz's character story, let me just re-say that, Damien is referred to as former Raider. He isn't referred as best friend, best partner, or anything. Former Raider. Kaz refers to Damien as former Raider, or that's how Red sees it. Meaning, when a character is referenced, it's referenced differently. Kaz is never mentioned in Damien's character story. Meaning Kaz is a recent thing in Damien's story. Meaning they most likely became friends after the collapsion. But then this all takes out to Jericho. If Jericho's truly the one that was mentioned and gave up his life for Damien in the Demise of Eden universe, that would explain why he isn't mentioned and why he isn't here. Because Jericho would make so much sense, right? But here's another thing I would like to talk about, which is a bit sensitive, but bear with me. It is obvious Jericho has a terrible depression, is probably most likely kind of super in some way. Jericho, someone who has lost everything. Jericho is someone who would probably give up everything just to protect one of his friends. Jericho running out into battle to protect someone, Jericho running into a horde of infected that costs his life, that is something Jericho would do, and I think Jericho only would do. Lijo would not run to a horde of infected to save someone unless maybe someone cares about a lot. Delta, maybe Delta would, but I think it would be more obviously said if it was Delta. Jericho is the only character that would actively do that. Which means, at the end of this theory, it says and means and points that, if this theory is correct, Jericho and Damien have some type of connection. And that means Jericho and Damien were close friends before Demise of Eden. I mean, now, where could all this all happen? Why? Why were they connected? It is obvious Jericho lived on New Earth and is an agent. Well, Jericho and Damien could have met through the, last Transit holdout thing. I gotta make a correction for myself right here. Jericho and Damien could have met through, Eden 272, because Jericho was on the planet beforehand, and Jericho was an important agent who helped fought in a lot of wars. He probably had some military connection, meaning they could either A, met in the military, or B, they could have met on 827. So that can also be a possibility, but again, that's a possibility I'm not even sure about. So take as you will for great salt. Really, that's all I can really say. Like in holdout mode, Damien met Jericho, he was interested, they talked, interactions, I guess. That simply could just be the answer, or it could be something more complex. I do want to come back to this theory later on, but right now, this is what I have. It's something that is so interesting to me, I can't help but say it. Because no one else is seen on YouTube has brought this up. And if this really is Jericho and Damien's story, isn't it something that should be studied or looked into a bit more? I don't know. To be honest, I'm going off script at this point. So I just want to wrap this thing up. I believe the person Damien is talking about in his character story, the one he was close to and the one who gave up his life to protect Damien, was Jericho. I also personally believe that Damien's old team was the holdout mode team. That's where he came from after Demise of Eden. He has all the same gear, he has everything from holdout mode. He never mentions anything from holdout mode, period. Maybe because he is a bit too traumatized from what he saw before the events of Demise of Eden to even bear about it. That's all I gotta say about this theory, and I don't know. Comments are probably gonna be off because, yeah, why not? So if you have any complaints or anything I missed, feel free to tag me in a community post or, I don't know. But yeah, I am definitely going to be making a catch-up theory to this. I'm definitely going to be explaining Jericho's character in more depth, and I'm definitely going to be looking into all the characters of Demise of Eden so much more deeply. For now, that's me, Mira, and I'm out. I'm tired.